Hello folks, Wolf Ninja here, bringing you another nerdy video. Um, Today is another Dungeons and Dragons video, and today we will be talking about the monk, the religious, um, okay, in my perspective, monks are not necessarily religious in D&D. I wouldn't compare them to the monks that we have in real life. It's hard to describe them. As I said, I never really looked into the monks per se. Uh, I believe they just follow us. I believe them to be sort of similar to a paladin, um, or maybe a ranger, someone who is dedicated to a certain type of life, and actually, yeah, they're more like the paladin. They're dedicated to a certain type of service to the world, and through that dedication and training, they they have harnessed some power. Sort of like how, in my opinion, paladins, through their dedication to their oaths and such, that they are looked on favorably by gods. So, again, it's a bit of a toss up. But yeah, the monk is an amazing class. It's one of the only classes. Sorry, it's the only class where if you want to make a hand-to-hand fighter, it's how you do it, because they're the only class that has from the get-go. There's a feat called Tavern Brawler, which allows you to deal like 1d4 damage when you punch, but the monk takes it beyond that, and we'll see how. Monk is the only class other than Rogue that I could say can allow you to play a ninja. The Rogue and the Monk are both ninja-esque classes in their own respective ways, and we're going to see that soon. But anyway, let's get on to the... as I said, folks, I'm going to be doing these videos slightly different than I used to. I will be reading the player's handbook of their vanilla class first, and then I will be moving on to their archetypes, which will include archetypes from Xanatar's Guide. So, let's get down into the nitty-gritty of it. Her fists a blur as they deflect an incoming hail of arrows. A half-elf springs over a barricade and throws herself into the massed ranks of the hobgoblins on the other side. She whirls among them, knocking their blows aside and sending them reeling until at last she stands alone. Taking a deep breath, a human covered in tattoos settles into a battle stance. As the first charging orcs reach him, he exhales and a blast of fire roars from his mouth, engulfing his foes. Moving with the silence of the night, a black-clad halfling steps into a shadow beneath an arch and emerges from another inky shadow on a balcony a stone's throw away. She slides her blade free from its cloth-wrapped scabbard and peers through the open window at the tyrant prince, so vulnerable in the grip of sleep. Whatever their discipline, monks are united in their ability to magically harness the energy that flows in their bodies, rather channeled as a striking display of combat prowess, a subtler focus on defensive ability and speed. This energy infuses all that a monk does. Now, so that is a brief description of the monks and their archetypes that we will find in the player's handbook. I don't believe in the Xanatar's has another similar description. It does. So there's two. Okay. So, again, we'll move on to the Xanatar stuff after we'll move on to the role-playing stuff that a traditional monk gets before we get to the mechanics from Xanatars. So we'll keep going from here. Now, this next section is called The Magic of Kai, and it is the source of a monk's power. They do not, to my understanding, they do not use the weave like most casters do. Like most casters, be it arcane or divine, harness the weave, but the only difference is the source. With the exception of warlocks, arcane casters harness the weave through arcane. Like they themselves harness the weave. A warlock does have access to the weave because of their patron, but their patron is like it often comes at a price in the end. Whereas a bard, sorcerer, or a wizard, when they harness the weave, it is through their own progression, or in the case of a sorcerer, their blood. Whereas then clerics, paladins, and druids, they harness the weave through their devotion to, true deities, which is why they're called divine magic. But okay, let's understand the key. Monks make a careful study of a magical energy that most monotheistic traditions called ki. This energy is an element of the magic that suffuses the multiverse, specifically the elements that flows through living bodies. Monks harness this power within themselves to create magical effects and exceed their body's physical capabilities. And some of their special attacks can hinder the flow of ki in their opponents. Using this energy, monks channel uncanny speed and strength into their unarmed strikes. As they gain experience, their martial training and their mastery of ki gives them more power over their bodies and the bodies of their foes. So, okay, they do harness the weave, but it's more in terms of the life energy that does flow. So, yeah, basically, the weave is, I believe, to my knowledge, is the magical energy that is all around you. It's in the air. It's all over. And again, normally you have to train to harness it, or be blessed to harness it, Whereas whereas all the other characters harness it through, like they harness the weave that's it. Like you could say, they harness the weave that's in the atmosphere, like the natural energy from all around them, the universe itself. Whereas monks, they don't. They harness the weave specifically from their own bodies as well as that of their opponent, like to disrupt it. So like the weave flows through human living creatures as well. It's just that it seems that the other casters, ki is the weave that flows through living creatures, whereas then arcane and divine magic is harnessing the weave that flows in the atmosphere or whatever, or the planes. So, okay. Training, and I cannot pronounce that word, so we're just gonna move on. Small walled cloisters dot the landscapes of the worlds of D&D, tiny refuges from the flow of ordinary life, where time seems to stand still. The monks who live there seek personal perfection through contemplation and rigorous training. Many entered the monastery as children, sent to live there when their parents died, when food couldn't be found to support them, or in return for some kindness that the monks had performed for their families. Some monks live entirely apart from the surrounding population, secluded from anything that might impede their spiritual progress. Others are sworn to isolation, emerging only to serve as spies and assassins, at the command of their leaders, a noble patron, or some other immortal or divine power. The majority of monks don't shun their neighbours, making frequent visits to nearby towns and villages, and exchanging their services for food and other goods. As versatile warriors, monks often end up protecting their neighbours from monsters or tyrants. For a monk, becoming an adventurer means leaving a structured communal lifestyle to become a wanderer. This can be a harsh transition, and monks don't undertake it lightly. Those who leave their cloisters take their work seriously, approaching their adventures as personal tests of their physical and spiritual growth. As a rule, monks care little for material wealth, and are driven by a desire to accomplish a greater mission than merely slaying monsters and plundering their treasure. So yeah, it seems like they're moved away from the traditional Buddhists, whereas monks are just. It seems like monks are taking up some sort of role similar to that of, in some cases, some real life religions, where like instead of priests and clerics running orphanages, it seems that monasteries and monks run them instead. And and again, because towns and villages often don't have like a town, if they don't have a town militia, or if they are because they're not protected by city walls, and a city is too far away to offer any real protection, they sometimes offer their own they offer to protect, sort of like in a sense of I hate to say this as a reference, but like sort of like Kung Fu Panda, like from what I gathered from listening in on my brother, like as he watches it, it seems like the fighters there are sort of like the monks, and that they protect the place. What it's called? The I think it was just called the Valley. I'm not sure, but yeah, it seems that monastery protects the valley, and that's what they do. So it seems like it's drawn on that. Like, I'm not sure if all monasteries are like that. Like, I suppose apparently they looked into research the way monasteries used to be for that movie. I'm not too familiar with monasteries so much. I know that a large number of them are associated with Buddhism and all that. So, but yeah. But okay, that was all the lore from the Player's Handbook. Now before we get into the mechanics, we're going to look into what the Xanathar's Guide expands. As I said, the Xanathar's Guide expands on all of them. Now, I am planning on catching up with the other classes that I missed. But no, it's just that I wanted to keep going with making sure I don't break this pattern. So I will be going back to the other classes that I missed due to what's it called, with the that I missed because I didn't start doing it. But yeah, don't worry, folks. I will get to them. So anyway, let's get back to it. Now here's a quote from something called Ember, Grandmaster of Flowers. I don't know if that's a real person or whatever. Do not mistake my silence for acceptance of your villainy. While you blustered and threatened, I've planned 4 different ways to snap your neck with my bare hands. Wow. Now that's sort of badass. Like, the villain is going on monologuing and the monk is just there sitting there. And he's actually planning how to stop. Oh wow, I like that. But okay. Monks walk a path of contradiction. What? Contradiction. What the fuck? Okay. I swore I read that wrong. They studied their art as a wizard does, and like a wizard they wear no armour, and typically eschew weapons, yet they are deadly combatants. Their abilities are par with those of a raging barbarian, or superbly trained fighters. Monks embrace this seemingly contradiction, for it speaks to the core of all monastic study. By coming to know oneself completely, one learns much of the wider world. A monk's focus on inner mastery leads many such individuals to become detached from society, more concerned with their personal experience than with the happenings elsewhere. Adventuring monks are a rare breed of an already rare type of character, taking their quest for perfection beyond the walls of the monastery and into the world at large. Playing a monk character offers many intriguing opportunities to try something different. To distinguish your monk character even further, consider these options in the selection below. Now, here's where it gets interesting, folks. As I said, Xanathar's expands on information about the classes, but it also adds really cool nitbits to make your monk even further unique. Sorry, your class further unique. Okay, now your monastery. A monk studies in a monastery in preparation for a life of asceticism. Again, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Most of those who enter a monastery make it their home for the rest of their lives, with the exception of adventurers and others who have the reason to leave. For those individuals, a monastery might serve as a refuge between excursions to the world, or as a source of support in times of need. What sort of place was your monastery, and where is it located? Did attending it contribute to your experience in an unusual or distinctive way? Now, here it gives you 6 options. Now again, technically you could work with your DM and create your own option, but like, again, these are recommendations that you could pick, or you could roll a d6. Now it doesn't say it doesn't say roll or pick like it does with the personality traits and whatnot, but I believe you could pick, or you could roll for it. Rolling would make it a lot more fluid, and you can then work it into your backstory, and again, it will give you lesser control. And you never know, just rolling and going with what you roll sometimes offers a much more significant backstory and worthwhile backstory than you may have thought of. Here are the 6 options. Your monastery is carved out of a mountainside where it looms over a treacherous pass. 2. I'm just going to put like a 2-second, maybe a second space between what I say instead of saying the numbers. Your monastery is high into the branches of an immense tree in the Feywild. Ooh, that's interesting. The Feywild. Your monastery was founded long ago by a cloud giant and is inside a cloud castle that can be reached only by flying. Your monastery is built inside a volcanic system of hot springs, geysers, and sulfur pools. You regularly receive visits from Azir traders. Your monastery was founded by gnomes and is an underground labyrinth of tunnels and rooms. Your monastery was carved from an iceberg in the frozen reaches of the world. That is really interesting. All of these options are really interesting, folks, and it really paints like a picture of like what type of archetype you may end up going with. I can definitely see, like, I created a monastic group for Ben, for Wong, when he first joined. Now who knows, he may come back, but I developed 4 monasteries to the north, south, east, and west. And I sort of based them off like the Avatar system, except instead of like them being more like, I obviously modified it to suit a D&D world rather than being straight from Avatar like. But each of them specialize in a particular element. Their monastery is devoted to the 4 elements. Like the archetype, which we'll get into later on. And wow, this really gives me some really cool ideas on how to have each monastery be like. Now, there are 2 more sections that expand on your monk character. Mosaic Icon and Master. So let's get into Mosaic Icon. Even the monastic lifestyle, which eschews materialism and personal possessions, symbolism plays an important part in defining the identity of an order. Some Mosaic orders treat certain creatures with special regard, either because the creature is tied to the order's history or because it serves as an example of quality the monk seeks to emulate. If your character's monastery had a special icon, you might wear a crude image of the creature somewhere inconspicuous on your clothing to serve as an identifying mark. Or perhaps your order's icon does not have a physical form, but is expressed through a gesture or a posture you adopt, and which other monks might know how to interpret. Here you have 6 icons. Once again, I'm just going to put a space between them. Monkey. Quick reflexes and the ability to travel through the treetops are 2 of the reasons why your order admires the monkey. Dragon Turtle. The monks of your seaside monastery venerate the dragon turtle, reciting ancient prayers and offering garlands of flowers to honour this living spirit of the sea. Kirin. Your monk sees its main purpose as watching over and protecting the land in the manner of the Kirin. Owlbear. The monks of your monastery revere a family of owlbears and coexist with them for generations. Hydra. Your order singles out the Hydra for its ability to unleash several attacks simultaneously. Dragon. A dragon once laired within your monastery. Its influence remains long after its departure. Again, really cool. Now again, these are just examples, so there are many animals, and again, there's even like, remember, with D&D there's countless creatures there. For the order of the 4 element order that I created, I'm picturing the dragon because of how many, like, there's a dragon for, in my world there's a dragon for each element. There's even wind dragons, so it just seems right. Anyway, now we're on to your master. This is the person who specifically trained you. During your studies you were likely under the tutelage of a master who imparted to you the precepts of the order. Your master was one of the most responsible for shaping your understanding of the martial arts and your attitude towards the world. What sort of person was your master, and how did your relationship with your master affect you? Once again, 6 options. Your master was a tyrant who you had to defeat in single combat to complete your instruction. Your master was kindly and taught you to pursue the cause of peace. Your master was merciless in pushing you to your limits. You nearly lost an eye during one especially brutal practice session. Your master seemed good-hearted while tutoring you, but betrayed your monastery in the end. Your master was cold and distant. You suspect that the two of you might have been related. Your master was kind and generous, never critical of your progress. Nevertheless, you feel you never lived up to your expectations placed upon you. And that is it for developing that will help you develop your backstory. Now there is the section on creating a monk, but because that sometimes we're now getting to that, and then we'll get into the quick build, and of course I'll explain your features. As you make your monkey character, think about your connection to the monastery where you learned your skills and spent your formative years. Were you an orphan or a child left on the monastery's threshold? Did your parents promise you to the monastery in gratitude for a service performed by the monks? Did you enter this secluded life to hide from a crime you committed? Or did you choose the mosaic life for yourself? Consider why you left. Did you your monastery Did the head of your monastery choose you for a particular important mission beyond the cloister? Perhaps you were cast out because of some violation of the community's rules. Did you dread leaving? Or are you happy to go? Is there something you hope to accomplish outside the monastery? Are you eager to return to your home? As a result of the structured life of a mosaic community and disciplines required to harness ki, monks are almost always lawful in their alignment. So, now again, it says almost. So, again, this is a recommendation. Okay, so just be careful. Now, as you make your monk, here's the quick build. This is handy for making a one-off character that possibly won't hinder your party during a one-shot. You can make a monk quickly by following these suggestions. First, make dexterity your highest ability score, followed by wisdom. Second, choose the hermit background. With those options, you are completely set up for your monk. Okay, now, luckily there's no spells for monks, so we can just move on. The only thing we'll have to discuss is key points, which you get at level 2. And from level 2, you start off with 2 key points at level 2, and they steadily go up by 1 from that point on. Yep. It seems like it, yep, 100%. They go up by 1 every level. Now, your hit points, your hit dice is 1d8 per monk level, and your hit points at first level is 8 plus your constitution modifier, and then your hit points at higher levels is 1d8 or 5 plus your constitution level modifier per monk level after first. So at level 2, you can either roll a d8 plus your constitution, or take a 5 plus your constitution. Now, proficiencies. Armor. You have no armor proficiencies. Again, as I said, they seemingly are like wizards in terms of weapons and armor, except they have a few more weapons. In the form of simple weapons and short swords. Choose one type of artisan tools or one musical instrument for your proficiencies. You're proficient in dexterity and strength saving throws, and you get 2 skills from the following: acrobatics, athletics, history, insight, religion, and stealth. Now keep in mind, as I said, I recommend that, like, now I know some of my friends may disagree. I know some DMs may disagree with me, but plan your early level character. And when I say early levels, I mean like 1 to 5 or whatever. Like, you know, that's okay. Like, just don't plan, you know, your character all the way to the end. Because especially when it comes to, like, for example, the monk, you should really keep in mind. Don't leave your decision of what order you're going, what path you took of the monk to the end. Don't do that. Have a plan, because again, this is something that you would have been trained for many years to do. So if you're planning, plan your path. Like, don't set up your monastery. For example, don't talk about don't plan ahead. Don't talk about your monastery as in, like, oh yeah, my monastery is devoted to the vast majority of my monastery is devoted to the 4 elements. You know, like, for example, if I had that be, if I told Wong, okay, your monastery was set up as the way of the 4 elements, right, and then he decided at last minute to change to way of shadow, then boom, I'm left like, okay, your monastery decided to make an exception from you, and they had to bring in someone to teach you. No. Again, I know there could be easier ways to explain why he's the way of a shadow while the rest of his monastery is 4 elements. There are plenty of ways you can explain that, don't get me wrong. It's just that, again, when it comes to certain classes, it's best to prepare early on. So that's just me. But in terms of multi-classing, that is something you really shouldn't plan. I know some of my players like planning it, and it's okay. It's just that I'd rather there be like a role playing reason, like something that happened in the story. But most of my players like to, like, for example, I have a player who loves playing a warlock, but he likes playing like like a heavily armored figure because he likes the abilities the warlock gets, but he does not like the armor that he gets. So he would always start off as a fighter and then multi-class into warlock. So, yeah. I'm like, you didn't have to waste a level for that. Your character could have, like, if we were higher level, I could say, like, okay, maybe your character trained to wear heavy armor. But if you're level 1, I would recommend you play a warlock. I even said to him, like, I allow you to, through training, your characters can progress, you know, through the armor. Like, it's just that you would have to first go through light, then medium, and then heavy. You can't just be proficient in heavy armor and then not be proficient in light, you know. So it's just that your character has to spend time training, getting used to that armor. Because there's even a thing in downtime where you can learn proficiencies, you know. It's just that it takes a very long time. So, yeah. Again, just with the monk, I recommend, plan ahead. When it comes to equipment, you start off with a short sword or any simple weapon. It depends on what type of monk you would be. I personally like the idea of the short sword, but I know lots of people who would rather go with the quarterstaff because it's a very traditional monk weapon. You can start off with a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack, and then 10 darts, which are a range weapon. Now, you have something called unarmored. Your very first feature we're going to talk about is unarmed armored defense. Begin at first level while you're wearing no armor and not wielding a shield. Your AC equals 10 plus your dex plus your wisdom. So yeah, monks are encouraged to not even use shields. It's all about their weapon or their hands. At first level, you also get martial arts. At first level, your practice of martial arts gives you mastery of combat styles that use unarmed strikes and monk weapons, which are short swords and any simple melee weapons that don't have a two-handed or heavy property. You gain the following benefits while you're unarmed or wielding any monk weapons, and you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield. You can use your dexterity instead of strength for the attack and damage rolls of your unarmed strikes and monk weapons. You can roll a d4 in place of a normal damage of your unarmed strike or monk weapon. This die changes as you gain monk levels as shown in the martial column. For example, we're actually going to go into that after this bit. On the monk table, when you use an attack action when unarmed strike or monk weapon on your turn, you can make one unarmed strike as a bonus action. For example, if you take the attack action attack with a quarterstaff, you can also make an unarmed strike as a bonus action, assuming you haven't already taken a bonus action this turn. Certain monasteries use specialized forms of monk weapons. For example, you might use a club that has two lengths of wood connected by a short chain called nunchaku, or a sickle with a shorter, straighter blade called a kama. Whatever name you use for the monk weapon, you can use the game statistics provided for the weapon in Chapter 5. Now, I have exotic weapons. So I actually have one called a Kurisari Gama, which is two kama connected by a chain. And I actually love that weapon. It's one of my favourites. To be honest with you, I'm actually... A part of me is thinking of making a Way of Shadow monk, just because I think it'll be really fun to play the sort of like ninja character, and I might do that at some point. Okay, now we're going to go into your martial arts table. I forgot that I thought they would mention the dice changes. So remember, you can substitute this die for any type of damage die that you get. For example, a short sword, a dagger. We'll start off with a dagger, the weakest of your monk weapons, which is a d4. A dagger is d4. Now, note that it only says you substitute the damage die. So even if you have a dagger plus, we'll get into the die before we talk about plus ones and whatnot. From level 1 to 5, it's 1d4. Okay, it's about the strength of a dagger. Once you reach level 5, it's 1d6 until you reach level 11, where it becomes a d8. And then when you reach level 17, it becomes a d10. Now let's talk about the dagger. So that means a dagger, which is normally a d4, instead, when you attack with it at level 20, you can substitute that d4 for a d10 instead, which is really handy. It means that you're... Funny enough, it means you can... Daggers are often overlooked, and that's because they're not the most damaging of weapons. Now, mind you, I have friends who do try and stick to using daggers, and there was even a member of Vox Machina from Critical Role that stuck to only using daggers, which was amazing. Fair goddamn play to that guy. because like technically he could have done the exact type. He could have done more damage with two short swords, But no, he stuck to using daggers, and I love that about Vax, you know. But yeah, with the monk, it's way more viable to stick with just one type of weapon, you know, and it's really cool. Now, again, remember, I only substitute the damage die. So if you have a +3 dagger at level 20, you can still substitute its its D4 for the D10 and still get the +3. So boom, you're always dealing 4 damage, and then you're then dealing a total of 14 max damage. So that's brilliant. Okay, we're also going to talk about its key points then, and your unarmored movements, cause I feel like since they did not mention the progression of the martial arts die, they may not mention the progression of the other abilities. We already talked about key points, how it goes up by 1 after level 2, and then your unarmored movement. Now this is where monks are really cool. Monks at level 2 get a feature called unarmored movement. Now what this does means it makes monks faster. It's to reflect that the fact that monks are trained to utilize speed and precision. So from level 2, you get +10 to your movement speed. So let's say a standardized character 30 movement. At level 2 your movement becomes 40, which means your character is dashing across the battlefield much faster than anyone else. Because remember, one round of combat is 6 seconds, and everyone is taking a turn at the same time. Now, from level 2 to 6, it's +10. Then from 6 to 10, it's +15. And then from 10 to 14, it's +20. Then 14 to 17, it's +25. And then 18, it becomes +30. Which is funny because, like, if you play a Tabaxi monk, right, you're zipping all across that battlefield. Tabaxi have an ability that, as long as they haven't moved for like a minute, they can then double their movement speed. So their movement speed is already quite impressive. It's 30. So with a monk, it becomes 60, and then with that ability, boom, 120 movement. That is basically playing like the goddamn Flash, folks. You're playing the Flash with that character. Zipping across the battlefield, like getting to that target and punching them. But okay, let's get back into talking about the vanilla monk. Okay. We talked about your key. Now, there's 3 things you start off with. Now, your archetype for your tradition, the Mosaic tradition, they expand on what you can do with your key points. But you get these 3 automatically for being a monk. For just being a monk. You get an ability called Flurry of Blows. Immediately, now you spent 1 key point to do each of these. Immediately after you take an attack action on your turn, you can spend 1 key point to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action. So instead of getting 1 extra attack, you then get to make 2. So remember how I talked about you get to make an unarmed strike each time you take an attack action? With this, you get to make 2 of them instead of just 1. But pretty handy. You also get Patience Defense. You can spend a key point to take the dodge action as a bonus action. That's handy, especially when you're trying to bog down a position. For example, in the latest episode of Critical Role, spoiler alert, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've been warned. So basically, what happened was, oh my god, Marcia. She heard your character as a monk, and she was holding down a doorway, right? And she kept spending I think she kept spending a key point to take the dodge action as a bonus, which means she could attack and then dodge. It's very useful. You also get Step of the Wind. You spend a key point and you can take the disengage or dash action as a bonus action on your turn, and your jump distance is doubled for the turn. So that is handy as well because, again, you could dash, which then doubles your movement speed. As I said, remember, Tabaxi Monk, that 120 was just because of they attacked. They were planning on attacking. If they took the dash action, folks, that doubles their movement speed. So their movement speed is already 60. You double it, then that's 120. That's them dashing, and then if you then further double it because of the Tabaxi's ability, that is 320, folks. No, 120 double that. That's 240, folks. Wow. If a Tabaxi monk dashes, goodbye. You are not seeing that creature. That creature is moving so fast you probably didn't even see it. So yeah, Step of the Wind, very fun to use. Would be very fun to use because like you can hit someone and then disengage and then run away to someone else. You have unarmed movement, which, as I said, allows you to increase your speed when you're not wearing armor or wearing the shield. Oh, and also apparently there's an improved version at level 9. You gain this ability to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids on your turn without falling during the move. So basically, as long as you complete your movement, you're unhindered by water or any type of surface. Now remember though, if you don't complete the movement, then that's it, you fall. You know? So like if there's like if there's a 50-foot cliff, you can run up that and then get over, you know. But if it's say 100, say if it's 70 feet, and you don't take the dash action, you'll land just 10 feet, too low, and then you would fall back 60. You'll fall down 60 feet then. So be careful with it. At level 3 you get your Mosaic Tradition. We're not going to talk about that in this part of the video. You get Deflect Missiles at level 3. You can use your reaction to deflect or catch a missile when you're hit by a ranged weapon attack. When you do so, the damage you take from the attack is reduced by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your monk level. If you reduce the damage to 0, you catch the missile if it is small enough for you to hold in one hand and you have at least one hand free. If you catch the missile in this way, you can spend 1 key point to make then a ranged weapon attack with the weapon or piece of ammunition you just caught as part of the same reaction. You make this attack with proficiency regardless of your weapon proficiency, and the missile counts as a monk weapon for the attack. So again, this happened last week in Critical Role. Someone shot an arrow at Marisha's character, she caught it, and then threw it back at a different opponent. And it was really cool. Like, her character shined so brightly there in that episode. You had your usual ASI, 4th, 8th, 12th and 16th, and lastly at 19th level you also have Slow Fall at level 4. Begin at 4th level, you can use a reaction when you fall to reduce any falling damage you take by an amount equal to 5 times your monk level. So equal to the 5 times, so 20. Oh wow! You can reduce by level 20. You can reduce 100 damage by your monk level. Now again, depending on the height, that may not be enough to negate the damage. So you have to still be careful about where you're falling. You get extra attack at level 5. Which means you can now, when you take the attack action, you can now attack twice. So potentially you get 4 attacks if you spend that key point for Flurry of Blows. Pretty handy. You get Stunning Strike. At 5th level, you can interfere with the flow of ki in an opponent's body. When you hit another creature with a melee weapon attack, you can spend 1 key point to attempt a Stunning Strike. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be stunned until the end of its next turn. Pretty cool. Starting at 6th level, your unarmed strikes count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. So yeah, wow. That is pretty cool. It means then creatures that are immune to normal weapon attacks are no longer immune to you anymore. So you can damage them with your. Now again, keep in mind this only counts for your unarmed strikes. So yeah, for your weapons, you still need that +1 dagger or whatever. Invasion. At level 7, your instinctive agility lets you dodge out of the way of certain area of effects such as a blue dragon's lightning breath or fireball. When you are subjected to an effect that allows you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed on the saving throw, and only half damage if you fail. So basically you get an automatic success effect with that ability, but if you do succeed, you take no damage. That is amazing. Also at level 7, you get stillness of mind. You can use your action to end one effect on yourself that is causing you to be charmed or frightened. So if you're being charmed or frightened, instead of attacking or anything, you can then take a moment to just breathe, and like it flows out of you. I picture some like those old kung fu movies where they do that sort of like Tai Chi stuff. Like you take a moment to do sort of like a Chai Chi pose or something, and boom. Again, I'm just trying to make in my mind a monk could be a really cool character to play as. You also get purity of body at level 10. Your mastery of ki flowing through you makes you immune to disease and poison. Really epic. At level 13, you get tongue of the sun and moon. You learn to touch the key of other minds, so that you understand all spoken languages. Moreover, any creature that you can understand the language can understand what you say. So that's what, like, some animals can't speak a language, or they understand the language. So now when they can understand, so if an animal has underneath a common, they can only understand a few things you say. Like again, animals are not completely fluent in English, for example. So now, if they have in their languages something that you can speak, they will now perfectly understand what you say, which is really cool. At level 14, and now keep in mind folks, this is all just vanilla monk. We haven't even gotten to their archetypes yet. At level 14, Diamond Soul. Your mastery of ki grants you proficiency in all saving throws. Additionally, whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 ki point to re-roll, but you must take the second result. At level 15, you have Timeless Body. Your ki sustains you, so that you suffer no frailty of old age, and you can't be aged magically. You can still die of old age, however, in addition, you no longer need food or water. So yeah, your character does not show basically your character will still age, but you cannot be aged magically. But, however, even when your character is getting older and older, the DM cannot impose difficulties on you because of this feature, like. And you also no longer need food or water. Level 18, you can use an action to spend 4 ki points to become invisible for 1 minute. Pretty epic. During that time, you also have a resistance to all damage but force. Additionally, you can spend 8 ki points to cast the Astral Protection spell without needing material components. When you do so, you can't take any other creature with you. Bit of a shame, but wow, cool. And now at level 20 folks, you get Perfect Self. When you roll initiative to have no ki points, you regain 4 ki points. Wow, pretty cool. And that is it for this video folks. The next video I'll be talking about our Mosaic traditions, which come in the form of the open hand. Is there a list that I can read out? No, there isn't. So I'll just read them out now. The Way of the Open Hand. The Way of Shadow, which is my personal favourite. The Way of the Four Elements. I think there's also one more. No, that's it. There is one added in the UA. It appears on my phone app. The Way of Death. Pretty cool. And then from Xanathar's Guide, if I can find The Way of Death, I will read it out. But I'll need to find where I got it. I think it was another Unearthed Arcana. So I may not be able to find it. But I do have it on my phone. It's just that I will have to list out the abilities. There's also then The Way of the Drunken Master, which is, drunk style kung fu. Way of the Drunken Master. Then there's The Way of Kensei. The Path of the Kensei it's called. And then The Way of the Sun Soul. So yeah, I'll be talking about those 6 plus any additional ones later on, folks. For now, I'm actually going to try and find The Way of Death Monk 5e, and I'll try and I think it was in Sword Coast Adventures. Yeah, it was. It's from the Skag book, so I'll have to read that out. I forgot the Skag did add some supplements. See, please tell me they did not add anything from Fire. Actually, I might ignore the Sword Coast stuff because that is very specific to how should I put it? Oh god, I'm blanking. I am blanking, folks. Yeah, sorry. Because that is exclusive to what's it called? The Sword Coast. Now again, you could use them in other worlds. It's just that they take some tweaking, and I'm not gonna talk about it because it is related mostly to the Sword Coast. I will talk eventually about my own interpretation of it at some point. But the thing is, though, it has not came up in any of my D&D work games yet, and I have not yet decided if I'm going to allow it in my my worlds yet. So, because like any monastic orders that do deal in assassination, I generally have them be what's it called? Way of Shadow, and I don't know much about the Way of the Long Death, so I'll have to look into it. So I will not be covering the Way of the Long Death, but I will cover, as I said, the other 6 that I mentioned: Open Palm, 4 Elements, Shadow, Drunken Master, Path of the Kensei, and the Sun Soul, which a lot of people say is the way of making Goku. But we'll find out as we read it in next time.